Hi, and welcome back to the third session. I'm Gianluca Fiorelli, and today we are going to have a guest that I was really looking forward to have for the third session. He is actually the Executive Vice President of Audience Growth for Raptip, but he's also an independent strategy consultant. He worked in its, let's say, an alumni of Distilled, an agency now not existing anymore, but that represented a lot in the world of SEO. He also worked for Moz, if you remember back in the days. He also had an experience working for Google and actually for DeepMind, if I'm not wrong. So this is an interesting insight on his working past. And this person is Tom Critchlow. Hey, hi, Tom. How are you doing?
Gianluca, thanks for having me on. I'm doing very well. One minor correction. I did work at Google, but I didn't work with DeepMind, just to set the record straight.
I don't know why I had this sort of Mandela effect in my memory.
Back when I was working at Google, AI wasn't really like a big thing back then, but I did work briefly with the team that was developing quantum computers. So that was kind of fun.
Oh, that can be for the last part of our conversation when eventually we are going to touch the future, because I have not so shy ideas about how could Google use quantum computing to beat the competition even more. And so let's start. And I'm going to ask you a classic question. How SEO is treating you lately?
I think we could maybe describe our relationship with Google these days as complicated. I think that we have gone from an era where things were somewhat predictable. Things were kind of the status quo. We kind of knew how things work. There was a pretty healthy relationship for the web and for Google, for publishers, for websites. I think if we wind back to 2022, 2023, when the helpful content update started, ever since then, so helpful content updates, the rise of Reddit, now AI overviews, etc., I think the relationship has become much more complicated, much more fractured, much more heated. I think we've seen a lot of the dialogue between the search industry and Danny Sullivan and some individuals at Google, where that relationship has just been strained, I think, over the last few years as Google has become much more aggressive in rolling out some pretty extreme algorithm updates and UI updates kind of across the board.
Yes, totally. I mean, I must admit that we must also be honest and try to understand person like Danny Sullivan. We all knew it before Google, and then we saw the difference when he entered to Google. So try to be diplomatic, but I mean, we are not diplomatic as an industry. we are all or white or black. Or Google is wonderful, or Google is not wonderful, to not use other words. But I want to tell you, it's coming to my mind. Us, SEO, obviously there is the reason because Google is still the 80% of the traffic is coming from Google. But why we are so blaming Google when all the LLMs, in many cases, are even worse? I mean, at least Google we still have the Google Search Console. So even if the data is obfuscated somehow, for instance, for AI overview traffic, AI mode traffic, still we have traffic data. But OpenAI especially, nothing.
I mean, I think it's the same reason that nobody cares when Bing does an algorithm update.
Yeah,
right?
obviously.
The traffic is still tiny. I mean, I think ChatGPT is obviously the only one worth paying attention to from all of the AI platforms. Claude and Perplexity, they send almost no traffic. They're tiny in usage compared to ChatGPT. I do think that, ChatGPT is worse than Google at linking out, which is saying something, given Google's track record with AI overviews and AI mode. I think we'll have more of a dialogue there. I also think that this entire conversation about AI search is very short-sighted. Right? We are living through the biggest disruption in search that the industry has seen since the birth of Google, in my opinion. And the pace of change is not slowing down, right? So there's no ads, right? So if Google or ChatGPT wants to put ads in these things, they're going to have to train users to click on links, right? You can't have ads without links. AI mode is still this Frankenstein experience of like kind of the web, kind of LLM, like everything's going to change, right? And so I think I have a little bit of a pragmatic view of like, yes, the linking out that happens in AI mode and AI overviews is not ideal today. I also think it's a subpar user experience. So I think that Google is going to realize that links have value. I was just looking this morning actually at OpenAI just released a brand campaign, a brand ad campaign for ChatGPT. And the examples they're using, I just found each one of them through ChatGPT myself. The examples they're using are literally better if you ask for links from the web, right? So like one of the examples in this brand campaign is a guy cooking a meal for a date night. And he asked ChatGPT and he's like, give me a recipe that's kind of like cool, but like not too cool. Like I want to play it cool with my date. And ChatGPT says, great, you should make this recipe. And then it gives 5 bullet points. It's like cook the pasta, cook the tomatoes, add cheese. It's like, if I'm having a date night, I'm not going to cook a recipe off 3 bullet points, right? The response is literally better. I ran it myself. You ask for recipes from the web, and it's like, great, here's a recipe from the web, full step-by-step instructions, photos, etc. So like, it's kind of a trite point, but I think it's really important. It's like, these things are better when they link out. And I think that we're living in this kind of uncanny valley right now where it's like the LLMs are so good at generating text. That is kind of the default response type, is like they spit walls of text back at you. And that's okay for certain kind of responses. But I think by and large, most of those walls of text response will be better augmented, enriched with relevant links, where it's like, hey, here's some links to go further. Here's some links to dive into something. Here's some links with photos, images, first-hand perspective, like all of that stuff that we know that the web has value for. I kind of feel like it's gonna come back around.
In fact, I think that it's still really bugging me. I wrote for AWR, our host, a post about Google Web Guide, which is still in the search lab. And I think that I wonder why nobody is talking about it, because I think that the Google Web Guide is a good compromise between using Gemini or generating introduction, and so also for creating, thanks to its version of a query fan out, a sort of big pillar page about the topic.
Mhm.
And then it's another thing which is great in the use of Gemini is creating the description of each search result instead of using the meta description or grabbing some text just because there is the keyword inside in the text. Is creating in this page, brand X is talking about this and this and this. So it's creating a better information for the person. Obviously, I think that could be a good use of search, which is able to introduce quick answers and maintaining links instead of creating something like AI overviews where the links are substantially invisible.
Totally.
In the AI mode, I mean, AI mode could be something interesting, but if they had the courage, let's say, to go directly in what they want and not just putting some things one time, because I substantially think that they already know what they want, because they show it not in this Google I/O, in the Google I/O of 1 year ago. When they do the demo, they already were showing us what they think is going to be, could be AI mode.
I
Go directly with
completely
that.
agree. Yeah. So the 2 really important ideas here, and I'm glad you brought this up, because this is one of my strongly held beliefs, is we are done with the age of 10 blue links. The era where you could Google a query or a search term and get back a list of like unopinionated, undifferentiated links. Implicitly, what Google was saying with 10 blue links was, here are things that are relevant to your query, but it never explained why it was relevant to your query. Right? Google for the last 25 years has never explained why this link that is ranking number 1 for the query that you searched is relevant. Right? So implicitly, it's saying by showing up number 1, it's relevant and you should click it, but it never explained why. Right? And so I think that using LLMs, they are very good at this. They're very good at saying, oh, you searched for this thing, these things are relevant, and here's why, right? Relevant to why you asked the question, you should click on this link. Or if you wanted a different kind of direction, you should click on this link. Or if you wanted a video, go over here, right? It can tell you why each result is ranking there. So I completely agree, Gianluca. Like, I think this is the future, is we're never going to see 10 blue links again. That is going to die. But I do think links are going to survive, very similar to how they show up in WebGuide today, where they are contextualized and there's a reason for linking and clicking to that link. Now, the second most important point is I think WebGuide is a really interesting thing from Google, but when you use it, it's slow. It's like 3-4 seconds to generate a response. And so again, back to this kind of uncanny valley, I think we're living in an age where Google knows what the better user experience is, but it can't do it fast enough, right? AI overviews, the reason that they have citations for links rather than like proper inline links is because it's faster. It's faster to generate the response and then ground it with links than it is to take all of the web pages relevant to a query, synthesize them, summarize them, create that pillar page, explain why each link exists. Like, it's too slow, right? Google for 20 years has prided themselves on the speed of the response. And so I think we're living in this kind of strange time where LLMs can be used to create a great search results page, but you can't do it fast enough to serve a traditional Google result. And so Google is kind of stuck in this, like, and that's why WebGuide exists as its own tab. It's why AI mode is its own tab. Like, they're getting in their own way. How do they get to the future where they can provide a great search results page with links? But like, how do you do that fast? I think it's a technical challenge that they have right now. And I think that'll get solved, right? I mean, Google has the best engineers in the world working on solving these exact problems. And so I think that I have confidence and faith that as we go into 2026, I think we're going to see more and more of that WebGuide style. Here's a link and here's why you should click it. That's going to come back into AI overviews, back into AI mode, however this stuff all evolves and combines. I think it's the future. But again, I'd encourage everyone to play around with WebGuide. There's some really interesting ideas in there, but it's just slow. It's too slow.
Yeah, yes, that's why the people who still haven't tested, when you open WebGuide, the first thing you see is classic first results. So
Right.
the 10 blue links, as WebGuide is for being, the filter web is thought to be. And then when you are starting to see these first classic search results, it's uploading the guide below. And yes, at the end of the day, I think that neither iMode, neither WebGuide as it is will exist, but everything will be merged, and we will see whenever the technology will let you Google to have something like an AI overview for conversation inside the SERP, and anyway, the search results organized as if it was the web guide.
Yep.
But, and I think that if there are people that are still thinking and having nostalgia, I mean, nostalgia is cool until it's not becoming a sort of sickness. But a nostalgia for the 10 blue links, I mean, we are years that we are talking about zero-click search. Oh, I mean, and in the zero-click search, we were seeing first pages with 7 links, blue links, because everything else was a search feature. Even if all these search feature and people maybe the smarter in the SEO industry were already saying, okay, when you're working for SEO, you don't have to just rank with search snippet. You have to start ranking with your video. You have to start ranking with your search results inside. The people also ask all the other features. So that was a good training for the situation that we are living now. But in this context of introduction of AI search, where do you see the search industry in this role among all the other, it's an improper word, all the other channels for digital marketing? What is the role of SEO now that is so put into discussion because traffic is fading away, visibility is a good metric, but it's quite hard to sell it to your clients and your boss?
Yep.
Where do you see us?
Yeah. I mean, here is the uncomfortable truth that the best teams at producing SEO outcomes have not ever been SEO teams. I'm going to say that again. The best teams at creating SEO outcomes have never been SEO teams, right? The things that really move the needle for SEO are links, right? Brand reputation, authority. These are the things that are fundamental to SEO performance. Sure, like keyword usage and technical crawling, like, I'm not saying those things don't matter. Like, sure, they've always been important and you can get some wins there. But the things that really move the needle in terms of long-term SEO outcomes, SEO success, has always been the brand marketing team, right? The product team, right? These things that fundamentally create good products that people want to use, that create brands that people want to care about and link to and talk about. right? The PR teams that go and get coverage in real news media outlets, right? That has always been true, right? So the SEO industry has always had this problem where the SEO teams and the SEO practitioners understand Google better than everyone else, right? So we understand keywords, we understand rankings, we understand all of this stuff way better than all the other teams, brand marketing team, the product team. But our ability to actually drive outcomes as SEO professionals has always been second fiddle to these teams that actually know how to pull the real levers that matter, right, over long time periods. And I think that's true going into the AI world too, right? Like, I think we all fundamentally believe that brand reputation, brand coverage, product usage and adoption, those things are going to continue to be the things that all of the LLM models, however they measure them, those are the things that really drive long-term success and performance, right? Like, content chunking and like writing self-serving LinkedIn articles, like listicles, like Reddit spamming, like, I mean, that stuff like kind of works today, like maybe a little bit, but like, if you're a real brand, that isn't where you're putting your dollars, right? You're putting your dollars into the brand team, the product team, the PR team, right? The marketing team, right? And so, I mean, we've had this crisis for a long time. I talked about this at the SEO MBA a lot. This has been my mission and quest for a long time is SEO professionals have got to level up. You've got to step up into executive roles. You've got to step up into understanding the business ecosystem. You've got to really understand things like brand marketing and product development. And if you don't do those things, you're going to get marginalized, right? You think back, like, technical SEO used to be more important than it is today. And that might be a controversial statement. People might not agree with me, but like technical SEO used to be like a big deal because websites had lots of problems. Google had problems crawling. It was a bigger piece of the pie. I'm not saying technical SEO isn't important today, but like it's not as important as it used to be. And if you look at the total amount of dollars that businesses invest, the proportion of that pie that's going to technical SEO is shrinking, right? And so again, if you think about the long-term outlook here, like if you want to future-proof your career, if you want to get involved in what's happening next, like you've got to think about the business ecosystem. You've got to think about moving the levers that actually matter. And if you're an SEO professional recommending to clients that things like brand reputation matters, right? Then you've got to take a long, hard look in the mirror and be like, well, am I as a professional, am I capable of moving those needles? Am I capable of doing the things that really matter at the end of the day? And I think that's an uncomfortable conversation, but I think it's one we need to have as an industry.
No, I like a uncomfortable conversation. I mean, because are the ones that really can make us advance instead of self-pity conversation, which are the worst, or we are the best, which are self-comforting, but maybe not the best one for growing. I will use myself as not an example for all the SEO, but I think that also in my evolution, I mean, it's 20 years that I'm doing SEO, but obviously, let's say my evolution in the last 6, 7 years. And it's becoming more, and I think it's also interesting because for many, many years, SEO strategy was somehow a neglected area. And when I mean SEO strategy, I mean giving insights to a brand from search and how to grow in terms of visibility of a brand itself. This is my idea of visibility, of strategy. But it always has been, let's say, neglected because SEO is very, let's do this thing, results now, etc., etc., etc. Also because this is what we have taught brands we are about. And I think that this is maybe, at least for me, where I have the capability to understand how search work. I'm starting to understand, because in this field is still very new, how AI search is working. For instance, you were saying we can inform, obviously, the heavy lift is going to be made by the brand marketing team, but we can inform how better doing that, how to have better results, how to enhance results thanks to our insights of how these machines are working. Or, for instance, very stupid, in coming back to the technical SEO part, maybe now because there is this limitation of LLMs in not rendering JavaScript, which is probably going to pass in the future. But for instance, when we were talking about brand SEO, more than saying to a brand marketing team what campaign to do, maybe some insights can be done because we can understand trends. But we can say, we can help you in making the brand even more unique and disambiguated thanks to knowledge graph, structured data, and all these kind of things. A friend of mine was telling me, for instance, there is a very famous Spanish brand of Inditex. So the guy is of Zara, but he's not Zara, which is in the knowledge graph for Spain, but it's not in the knowledge graph for the US. Why? Because they didn't care about creating a good knowledge graph based with organization structured data for the English language. So this is the classic. So because the brand is a name as a name. So Google is not recognizing it as a brand. So they are not appearing. So they are not, a knowledge graph. It's really strong for brand positioning on SERP. And so these are the things that we can help and support more than saying you should do this or we should do this digital PR campaign. Yes, but digital PR is SEO. I don't know if it's SEO. It's always been considered a part of SEO, but I think it's PR is PR, not really SEO.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of SEO agencies in particular that are having. I mean, this is a trend that's been going on for 10 years now, Gianluca, right? I mean,
Yeah.
You go all the way back. Let's rewind the clock, right? Back to like 2000 and let's go back to like 2009, right? SEO agencies used to be great at doing SEO because what you did was you said, hey, client, I'm going to get you a bunch of article links and a bunch of directory links, and that moves the needle, right? And so like you'd be able to say, I'm going to get this page ranking higher, right? Then like Panda came along and the big Google algorithm updates in like 2010, 2011, and you're suddenly in a world where SEO agencies are like, oh, you need content marketing. Like you need real links, right? You need quality links. And so, Distilled and others, right? We launched into like content marketing as the new thing, right? Because it was like, oh, we can do this engaging infographics and link baits and all these things that we used to do. And that stuff is going to drive links. And so that's going to drive SEO performance, right? And that worked for a bit. And then as that evolution happened and as content marketing became more mainstream and harder, a lot of the smartest agencies realized like, oh, this is just digital PR. This is real PR. It's like there are teams that know how to do this, build relationships with journalists, get real coverage, real news stories, real links. And so it became that, right? Like digital PR is really just, as you said, PR. And the digital PR that a lot of SEO agencies were doing, and some still doing today, was second fiddle to what real companies are doing, right? And again, it goes back to my point, which is that if you're working as an SEO professional in the field of SEO, your ability to actually move the needle on some of these metrics is somewhat limited. I think the best SEO agencies have realized this, and they've done a couple of things. They've either built real PR kind of capabilities, right? And they've really like up-leveled their digital PR and kind of outreach efforts. Or they've pushed into like a consultancy mindset, which is a little bit like what you said, Gianluca, like being an advisor at the senior level to brand campaigns, PR campaigns, and the rest. Or they push into the technical side, right? Which again, I mean, there's plenty of dollars still left for technical SEO. Certainly, I think Eli Schwartz with like product-led SEO, the whole idea that SEO is no longer a function that sits on its own, but for scaled businesses, SEO is a function that lives inside the product organization, right? And so again, the smartest ones, but individuals and agencies have realized that product-led SEO is a real thing, but it is a real thing that lives inside the product team. It's not a real thing that lives inside the SEO team or inside the marketing team. And so again, you have this kind of divergence, right? We talk about SEO as being a single thing, but it's many different things. And I think that fragmentation of the industry, the specializations in the industry, that's been happening again for a long time now. And I think that the era of AI search is only going to accelerate some of those trends, right? It's only going to accelerate some of those things. Are you doing product-led SEO? Are you doing technical? Are you doing PR and kind of brand-led stuff? It's really going to fragment, I think.
Yes, but it was fragmented. It's clear, for instance, because in the very beginning, I remember that the person doing SEO was also doing paid advertisement. Right. And then that was the first big split. Or you're doing SEO or you're doing SEM. Mm-hmm. And then started to be, you are specialized on technical SEO, you are specialized in content SEO, which is somehow horrible because it implies many other things that went very wrong. And then, for instance, myself, I define myself as a strategic SEO or international SEO, depending on the situation. I think, yes, but somehow we also lived the other way around. SEOs trying to put their feet in every possible field of the work. of a website.
Mhm.
So SEO, putting SEO as a central for everything. So if someone was doing social media, SEO needed to inform social media what to do. Content never was something related to SEO for me. Content marketing is a discipline by itself. Cannot be SEO in content marketing. Also because many times SEO ruin content marketing. And then all the things, link building became something that created agency doing just that.
Yep.
And then evolving to digital PR, etc., etc. I think that this is somehow our own omnivore tendency to appropriate of everything, of being in the center of the attention for everything in digital marketing. But anyway, you published very recently a blog post on the Raptive blog and our take on the future of search, SEO, GEO, and beyond. I don't enter in the polemic of SEO versus GEO versus LLMEO because, as we were saying before, starting the conversation, the recording of this conversation, I think it's becoming boring and futile. Instead, you were saying that, for instance, you were really pushing your readers to understand that there is not just the classic search. People are not searching anymore only on Google, on the main search surface. But even if they are searching inside the Google ecosystem, it could be YouTube, it could be the news, it could be Discover with predictive search. But after people are searching, especially the news generation in Instagram, on TikTok, social media in general, now there is ChatGPT, etc., etc. So to expand the concept of search, because search behavior is changing. You were talking obviously a lot about news, I believe, in the context of Raptic. Why did you put such a strong emphasis on news? And then I will ask you something more.
Yeah. Well, so I think the Raptive network, for those that don't know, so we have a network of about 6,000 different sites that we work with, a mix of independent content creators, bloggers, but also independent news sites and media sites. So we definitely skew to the content end of the spectrum, right? We don't really work with e-commerce sites. We don't really work with government sites or anything like that. So I think that our view of the web is a certain kind of slice. And I stand by what I said. I think that for most creators and news and media sites, there is nothing you should be doing differently today for AI search than regular search, right? Assuming you're doing kind of modern SEO best practices, nothing has really changed, right? I haven't seen any evidence of real case studies or tactics, strategies that you can do that are things that you should be doing differently than what you're doing before. Now, that doesn't mean that nothing is changing. Everything is changing, right? AI overviews, AI mode, the things people are searching for, how they search, the platforms they're using, where everything is showing, everything is changing. But in terms of like what you do about it, I don't think much has really changed yet. But again, we have a fairly opinionated view of the web, which is heavily skewed to content creators. I think that, the whole kind of SEO versus GEO debate is a little bit reductive. Obviously, it's a dumb argument. And most of that is because we're thinking of SEO as one thing and GEO as one thing, right? But that hasn't been true for a long time. SEO has always been different things to different types of sites, right? So if you're a platform like Airbnb, what SEO means to you is radically different than if you're the New York Times, right? If you are an e-commerce site, what you think of as SEO is radically different than an independent blogger, right? It's different focus on technical versus content versus editorial, different kind of search results, different kind of search result features, different kinds of schema, like everything's different under the hood. And the GEO debate is the same, where it's like GEO is not one thing, right? And so if you're a content creator, like a news or a media site or a blogger, I think that GEO is mostly the same as SEO today, right? Most of the things you do are the same. If you're a brand, right, whether that's an e-commerce brand or a different kind of brand, GEO is a little bit different, I think, right? And this is an opinion, but this is my opinionated take, is that increasingly we are going to see that brand reputation, so not just the kind of brand authority, right, in a classical kind of PageRank or link equity sense, not just brand authority, but brand reputation is increasingly going to drive how you show up in these AI search surface areas, right? So if people say bad things about your brand, right, if people reference your brand in ways that say, like, don't use them in these situations, I think that is going to have a knock-on effect on the way that AI search engines feature and talk about your brand. Again, if we go back to the conversation about web guide, right? The future of SEO whatever surface area you're looking at, with ChatGPT, Google, the future of SEO is that all of these platforms need a reason to link to you. It isn't enough anymore to just show up number one in a search result. They need a reason. They need to write that little bit of text that says you should click on this link because. And if there isn't a good because, just because you show up number one, you're not going to make it in the future, right? And that is much more of, again, a brand reputation, a UGC, consumer sentiment type play. But for those kinds of brands, that's going to become increasingly more important. But again, for news and media sites, that's much less of the deal. Much more of the deal is like about the content itself rather than about the brand per se, right? And so again, everything is changing, but I think what's lost in some of that nuance between SEO versus GEO is that SEO is not one thing and GEO is not one thing. Depending on the kind of business and the kind of brand that you have, the kind of industry that you're in, will really dictate how you should adapt to the future.
Yes, and I think that online reputation management, which was another area of SEO, is going to resurface. And that's why also one of the things that I usually recommend is whenever we are doing, let's call it keyword research, even if I don't like keyword research as such. But when we are doing keyword research and then clustering, etc., I always recommend to let's cluster in all these keywords that Google is suggesting to us. Also, we're doing sentiment analysis in order to understand what is the sentiment implied, especially the branded keywords, in order to understand if the branded keyword is implying a negative sentiment or positive sentiment or a negative sentiment. Because depending on the clustering, we can understand maybe we are beloved for one type of products, but this other line of products, for instance, is considered awful. And people is saying past about it. So we can understand, also measure, inform the client, say, okay, you have to do something in order to make you pardon by your customers about the quality of this product. So it's not the classic SEO as it was, but it's SEO still for me, because depending on that, you can have a better impact for the brand positioning in LLMs, AI search, etc.
But there's a distinction here, right, Gianluca, right? So this goes back to the conversation we had earlier. So like, as an SEO professional, you can highlight a gap in the brand perception, right, for a certain product or a certain service line or a certain location for your business. But changing the brand perception for your business,
branding.
That
it's
isn't
the product
that's
and
not
branding.
the SEO team that's doing that, right? And so I think this also goes back to the point, which is that SEOs talk a good game about having all the answers, but the people that drive the real outcomes, the real SEO outcomes, are not often the people that work in SEO.
Yes, also because, for instance, before I was talking about online reputation management, the classic in online reputation management, just because it was Google. We were playing only with Google and the classic algorithm of Google. It was just pushing the bad results, second page and further. But in LLMs, you cannot hide anything. It's going to be pick up anyway. So you cannot just build an enormous amount of products, of pages saying that you are the best brand in the world. Then just one Reddit thread, very popular, is saying the contrary, because that Reddit thread is going to pop up and maybe going to be the first thing the LLM is going to say about your brand.
Yeah, and I think this is something that, again, I feel like this is an opinion about where things are going. Just to get technical for a second, right? So we live in a world right now where I perform a prompt or a search phrase, right? Like, I don't know, like a SEO agency New York, right? Let's say. So I search for SEO agency New York. As I enter that query, the way that ChatGPT and Google work today is they do what's called query fan out, right? So under the hood, they execute a bunch of searches in real time. So they search for best SEO agency New York, e-commerce SEO agency New York, enterprise SEO agency New York, like best SEO agency, all of these kind of different queries, right? They assemble all of those search results. And for each of those search results, they're extracting essentially the text from the page, right? They're then summarizing all of that to then generate a response back to you. Okay, that's the way things work today. We actually know from some of the leaked antitrust trials recently, it was in one of the documents that was unsealed, they have this thing called fast search, right? So under the hood, when Google does those query fan outs, right, they're not using the same kind of fully featured search that we use as a consumer. They're using a thing called fast search, which is, as the name would imply, faster, right? So their emphasis on speed, right? They need to go do those fan out queries like in less than like 50 milliseconds, get the results, quickly fetch them, quickly summarize them to try and have any hope of getting a response back to the user in time for AI overviews or AI mode, right? That's the way things work today. I strongly believe that at some point very soon, maybe Google's already doing this today, but at some point very soon, when Google crawls your site, they will run some kind of evaluation of your site at crawl, right? So that when the query fan out happens and they search in real time for SEO Agency NYC and they get information back about your website or about your brand, that information is going to be enriched with a pre-computed LLM response and evaluation of whether that business should be trusted, what their authority is, whether they have any bad press, right? Why they might be relevant for certain kinds of searches that they're related to, right? And Google is going to pre-compute that using LLMs so that their fast search response can grab not just the URL and the text from the page, but they're going to grab the URL, text from the page, and this like metadata around how much it's trusted, right? Like what its kind of page rank is in classical world, right? But also like a bunch of evaluations and kind of qualitative evaluations. And that's then going to get pumped back into the AI overview and the AI mode, right? And I don't think that's happening today, right? We haven't seen any evidence of that's happening today, but it is clearly where things are going to go in the future. And so back to the point about reputation management, about brand perception, right? These things are going to get pre-computed, right? At some point, we don't know how often, we don't know it's going to be a black box, right? Google's going to do this under the hood and we're going to have no idea how they do it or how often they refresh it or what sources they're using to compute it, right? But that information, that is going to radically change the quality and the relevancy of the AI search result.
Yes, but I can foresee it somehow. It's again speculation. This time is my speculation. I can foresee it as an expansion of the concept of knowledge graph. I mean, the knowledge graph is not just about the brand is with this as a CEO with producing, manufacturing these products that are sold with this brand name, etc., but adding also, and so connecting with things coming from other websites. And Reddit people opinion on this brand is good, bad, medium. I can foresee that direction. So because that would be creating a knowledge graph based on knowledge base, and that can be updated as it was the model. Not so frequently as the classic index, but let's say every 6 months or whatsoever, whenever Google really need to refresh the data. And I want to talk again about, you say that Raptive, most of the people Raptive is supporting are creators and creator or news website or this kind of independent news website or blogs, etc., etc., etc. We know that this website really can struggle with AI because in the sense AI overview, we saw that it's not really bringing traffic. And usually we see this kind of creator really shaming on Google because of the traffic they are losing. And I'm curious, what you inside Raptive, if you can tell it, what are you supporting your clients in order to not be so hugely dependent on classic organic traffic?
Yeah, I mean, two things. One, we are advising all of our clients to try and diversify away from Google, right? Build your email list, build your social following. These things are good to do. That's been best practice for years, but obviously important. However, it's also true that Google is, the number one traffic source by a long, long way, and there isn't really a good number two. So it's good to diversify. That is things that you should be doing. That is absolutely best practice, but that isn't necessarily going to tell you the whole story, right? I think what we also advise our clients on, and everyone that we work with at Raptive, is we don't enforce, but we recommend that you block the AI training bots, right? So we recommend that we have a belief that over the next X number of months, however it shapes out and when it shapes out, the balance of power between the AI models, Google included, and content creators is gonna rebalance a little bit, right? We know, right? Remember when LLMs first came out, right? And it was like, oh, the foundation model can just answer the response completely. But what we realized was they have massively high hallucination rates. How do you fix the hallucination rates? Oh, you ground it in search, right? The query fan out and so on that we were just talking about. So, you need content. You need fresh, authoritative, real-time content across the web, right? In order to make a good response. If those responses don't link out right? If they don't send traffic out, that content ecosystem dies, right? And Google knows this and ChatGPT knows this, right? They just haven't done anything about it yet. But we fundamentally believe that the balance of power is going to have to shift back somehow, right? And that we believe that if you block the training bots, right, we have negotiation power and future bargaining power as and when we get to have a seat at the table to talk about, whether we get compensated, how we get compensated. And there's a ton of work happening in this space, right? There's a ton of startups. Microsoft just announced an initiative last week. Lots of things are happening in real time. I don't think anyone's really figured out, or I don't think anyone really knows like where that goes or how that problem gets solved. But the good news is that we know it's a problem, right? And again, all the AI platforms, Google included, they know that they need this content ecosystem to exist, right? This content exists. If they don't send traffic out, the content ecosystem dies. And they know that. And so like they are heavily incentivized to solve that problem. Now, whether we end up with as much of the long tail on the web as we used to, I don't know. Whether it is still ad supported, like probably, but we don't know. Lots of open questions remain about how this future state will end up. But, fundamentally, again, you can try and diversify your traffic away from Google, but for most businesses, that is a very, very difficult multi-year effort. Now, it's something you should do. I recommend it, but that isn't an easy recommendation. And again, Google is still the behemoth in the room.
Yes. And in a short video that you did for Raptive, you were emphasizing the importance of creating value. So, and this is where the creators are really strong. And I was thinking, connecting to a very recent conversation I had with Joanna Lord, we were talking about the creator economy, and now, until now, still, usually brands and creators, somehow the brand is the canon and the creators are the fandom of the brand. But usually they work on parallel path and very randomly or very rarely they cross path. We were foreseeing eventually the need, at least Joanna was seeing this need of start making creators and brands work on the same path instead on parallel ones in order to start creating not just simple co-marketing, not just simple influencer marketing events, but really co-creating things together. And with the brands trying to absorb part of the fandom, and the fandom trying to not go too far with the brand values, the vision of a brand, and the ownership of a brand. You think this could be something that, considering the kind of creators you work with, this could be one of their future?
Yeah, I mean, I think this goes back also to something I talked about earlier, where it's like SEOs think that they have the ability to influence this stuff. Like, if you're an e-commerce brand, you likely have a team managing influence relationships. You have vendors, you have analytics, you have brand teams doing brand deals. Like, this is a whole ecosystem and a whole industry that exists around influence marketing. It's not new. It's been around forever, including all the way up to celebrity partnerships on TV, right? Like if you watch any TV ads these days, and I try and do a little of that as possible, but if you watch any TV ads, like almost every brand has a spokesperson, like a face of the brand, whether that is like a mascot, right, like Geico, or whether it is like a mezcal tequila, right, with like Dwayne Johnson, like The Rock. Like every brand has a face, right? And I think that maybe what Joanna's kind of sketching out a little bit is like we're still relatively early in having all of the infrastructure to support brand partnerships, influencer work, and so on at scale. But that space is more mature than I think a lot of SEOs give it credit for, right? Again, a lot of real brands are spending a ton of money there. A lot of creators in the Raptive network are getting paid a ton of money there. And I think that space will continue to evolve. And I also feel like the insight that Google had a couple years ago, which is that people want firsthand perspective and real users' point of view, right? Which is why Reddit like exploded on the search results page, one of the reasons. That's the same insight that I think gives me hope that as these LLMs get better and as they get faster at processing information and surfacing it in their responses, we're going to see more of that firsthand perspective, right? More creator-led content, more individual voices, more blogs, more editorial content come back into the responses, right? In many ways, an LLM response today is kind of like Google was, 5-10 years ago, which is like unopinionated, just like template links, just a wall of text. Like what we know people want is rich results, right? We know that they want this stuff that is linking out to a variety of sources. It's visual. It's got firsthand perspective. It's engaging. It's unique. all of that stuff is going to come back, right? We're going to come back to all of that stuff, all of these ideas that we knew from before. So anyway, that was a long-winded way to answer your question around like, yes, I like influencer marketing is a massive thing today, and it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I was also thinking more about the classic influencer marketing. I was thinking also getting what we could eventually call the small influencer, like the real creators who maybe own a YouTube channel, for instance, and which is a small audience, but very influential, very engaged. These are maybe the kind of person that kind of influencers, the real creator, in my opinion, because an actor is not a creator, a celebrity is not really a creator. These are the creators that I think that brands should start making bonds with. And talking about a thing that you were saying before in the really beginning, we are still in the middle of the Red Sea. We have started our work. We don't see the initial cost, but we still don't see the end of the other cost, the other coastline. And one of the things is advertisement, because neither ChatGPT, neither the other is going to still have found a way to advertise inside AI search. Because yes, they must reteach how to click a link.
Right.
How do you have some hypothesis of how this could be?
Well, I mean, we just saw last week OpenAI announced ChatGPT Pulse, which is their equivalent of
yes.
like a Discover feed. I think it's incredibly obvious how ads could show up in that surface area, right? This is the LLM engine coming to you with a recommendation of what to consume, like perfect surface area for ads, right? And so I think both in the kind of intent driven, like I put a query in, I put a prompt in, we'll get ads, but we'll also have this like recommended content ad feed, right? Like this, it's going to be a massive,
the advertisement inside Discover.
Correct. Yeah. But it's going to be more relevant, right? Again, it won't just be a link. It'll be like, here's a link, but here's why you should click it, right? Back to that point, right? Everything is going to come with this recommendation that goes with it. And that's going to be I think it's going to be a massive boom. I think the amount of revenue that's going to flow through advertising against these LLM responses is going to be huge, right? And that's why it's Google's game to lose, right? Google is still the number one player, well positioned to win that battle.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that you have to go, but before going, just a quick question about you.
Yeah.
And I have a curiosity about you. You are British, but you're living, how many years better you are living in the US?
14 years now.
But so the question is somehow reminding of a question that I am asked a lot too. When people is asking, but how much Italian do you feel still, and how much Spanish do you feel now? So the question is the same for you. How much British do you still feel, and how much an American, US American, do you feel after 14 years?
Good question. I think the quick answer, the simple answer is I don't feel very American, but I do feel like a New Yorker.
Okay, that's a great answer. Yeah. Thank you, Tom. It was a real pleasure to have this conversation with you. I'm sure that also for our spectator listeners on both YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast, it was a great hour of conversation.
Gianluca, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's always nice to chat and catch up. So thank you for having me on.
And thank you also to you. And remember to ring on the bell and subscribe so you will be notified of new episodes as good as we want with Tom Critchlow. Thank you. Bye-bye.